So, okay, cool. We've got a few people in here. Um, we have not officially started. So, Tony and I are just kind of chatting and warming each other up
Catching
and
up a little bit.
yeah, waiting for more people to arrive. Um, okay, so in case you don't know, for those of you that are listening right now, in the upper right corner, there should be a button that you can push of a chat bubble. And if you click that button, a chat window on the right-hand side should open up. And, I do want this to be interactive. So if at any point you have a question, cool. So Eric, you got it. If at any point you have a question, you can type it in, or maybe there's a raise hand feature. I can definitely invite people. In order for you to speak on camera and with your voice, I have to invite you on the stage. And so, I would like people to sort of announce that they have something that they would like to say or ask, and then I can invite you on the stage, and then you have an opportunity to either speak or be on camera, or you can just type it in the chat. So we're all just figuring this out. This is the first time that I'm hosting this, so we're figuring this out as we go. And are there any questions before we start?
Yeah. Or you guys can like queue anything up, of course, or any questions you may have, whether it's my work, Reid's work, or even just about the event.
Yeah, or like technical questions. By the way, I am black and white, not because of any kind of stylistic choice that I made. I'm also recording this, and so the recorder and Discord are both using the video, and somehow that made my camera black and white. So it's not on purpose, but we'll go with it. And yes, I am recording this, so it will be available later. I'm gonna get a drink of water. I can notice that my voice is getting a little dry, so I will be back on mute, and I'll be back in just 30 seconds. So the background is that I had reached out to Tony. I think we met through a different a Slack group, and I reached out to him, and we already did a podcast style conversation for my Jump Cut YouTube channel. But something happened with the video, and it was just not usable at all. So I do have a list of questions that I could recycle from that conversation just to get things going. But again, if at any point, if we're talking about something and you have a question, feel free to type it in the chat, or ask to be invited to speak on the stage, and definitely welcome to do that. So, Tony, let's get this started, and could you just briefly describe who you are and the work that you've done for video editing?
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Tony. So I've been editing for 15 years now, but more professionally since the age of 22. So I guess 7 years at that now, almost 8. And yeah, I'm primarily a YouTube video editor. When I got started in editing, I got interested in editing because of animation and what have you. But then it was YouTube where I was like, oh, these people are just making videos. Maybe I could do that. And as much as I love recording and what have you, it was the editing part that really stuck to me. So now I work with my friend Thomas Frank. We have 2 channels. We have the main Thomas Frank channel. We're close to 3 million subscribers there. And then we have the Thomas Frank Explains channel, which is a Notion like learning ground. It won't always 100% just be Notion, but Tom's really passionate about it, so that's basically her company focus now. But I've also worked with other creators and editors. So I've been on the editing podcast, if you guys happen to know it, and I even edited my own episode. If you guys want to check that out, that was really fun. It's called misconceptions, the misconceptions of hiring an editor. I think that's what they titled it. So you'll see me there. But then, yeah, so I've worked with like Hayden Hillier-Smith, Jordan, and then I've worked with other big creators such as like, if you guys know who like Noah Kagan is. I did a little bit for like Wendover Productions once through Nebula. Um, it's funny to say how many people I've worked with, and then on the spot I can't seem to remember everybody. But yeah, it's been quite a long journey for me.
That's awesome. What is it like working with other YouTube editors, especially as big as like Hayden Hillier Smith and others that you've mentioned? And what was it like editing your own episode of the editing podcast?
It's been great. I can't undermine the notion of like making friendships in this industry that we're all in. Like it's such a big deal where you just never know where life will throw at you or what life will throw at you just by making friends. So I reached out to Hayden on Twitter just because I followed him for so long and I liked the podcast, and I got invited to speak because they saw I worked with Tom. And but it wasn't until we just were spitballing ideas. Like we did a little pre-screening before our talk just to come up with ideas. And yeah, we all just realized like we all just vibe together. And I consider him a friend. And now having that connection, and then when it came to like our interview, I just asked Hayden, I'm like, hey, just curious, like who's gonna edit this video? And he's like, oh, it'll be our editor. I forget his name. I'm really bad with names. But anyway, I was just like, do you guys mind if I do it? I'm like, I just want to do this as practice because I've never done a podcast the way you guys do it. And Hayden was taken aback. He's like, you want to do that? He's like, yeah, why not? No one's ever offered to do that. They did pay me, of course, but I wouldn't have taken the payment anyway because like I really was just very interested in just trying it out. And I gotta say, it's just I feel like I've been very blessed in a lot of ways to make the friends I have in these opportunities, but a lot of this has just been amazing experience. And I think that's what as we as editors should acquire is a lot of experience in a lot of different things that we can work on.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, every project is so different. There's always new problems and new ways to be creative. And I think what you did is awesome. Like you were enthusiastic and you showed that you wanted to do something. And very rarely is anybody going to say no if you offer to help out in some way.
Yeah, even when it comes to like editing your own interview, like I'm sure most people are like, "Oh, I can't wait to see it." And I was just like, "No, if I can get my hands in there, why not?" More experience.
How did you how did you handle like not being too close to the material, if that makes any sense? Like sometimes they say like for directors not to edit their own films because they're too close to the subject matter and they need someone who's a bit more distant from it. So did you have any did you run into that? Was that a problem? Was that an issue of you editing your own footage of yourself talking?
No, actually, like, or maybe I think right now I didn't feel that way, but when I was editing it, my entire goal was not even about let me make myself sound as smart as possible and what have you. I was more like, let me make sure no one would know that I edited it, that it would just be from them. And I think that was the good mindset to come into it, just because if someone could tell that somebody else edited that video instead of like Hayden or his editor, then I feel like I would have failed. So I think I luckily just had the right mindset from the beginning. Um, but that's true though. Like that could have been detrimental had I been more focused on making myself look good rather than the whole episode.
Yeah, that's actually an excellent point because they have a very um, distinctive style in how they edit the podcast. And so what you did is what a lot of editors do in unscripted on any of like, Survivor or Deadliest Catch or Married to Medicine. Every show has its own style. And you were able to copy what Hayden and Jordan had created as their editing style and then edit a separate episode to that style. And nobody knew that it was done by a different person because that show has a style that it's made. Um, is that is that codified at all, do you think, by the editing podcast? Do they have like a document that's like this is our editing style? Is that something that YouTube content creators do, create sort of a manual, so to speak, of like, this is how we edit, this is the style that we use, this is how you do it?
Yeah, that's the thing. So when it came to them, I did ask them what I would normally ask anyone that I would edit for. So I asked them like, all right, what is the goal whenever you guys edit these? Like, is it more about the information? Is it about the style? Maybe they care more about that. And then do they have a style sheet or like a guy? What is it called? A branding sheet, something like that. I always forget the name. Everyone calls it differently. And they do. They have their own branding. They have their own fonts. They have specific colors they use. So that already helped me tremendously. And just through my own experience editing for a lot of people and businesses, I always know to ask that just in case they have it at hand. But then, yeah, when I was doing it, Hayden just said like, yeah, like just edit it and have fun. But that obviously, try to focus on what they do. But one thing that I'm very particular with, and I'm trying to make this more known even in my videos. I don't think I've done a good as a job yet in doing this. But I remember a while ago that I realized the best way for me to get work is to get really good at basically becoming like a chameleon, which is, can I approach any business and just immediately kind of assimilate my way in there and kind of blend in? And by that, I just mean, can I easily see what they like to do, take my little notes, and then approach it that way? Because I think personally that is a good way to approach an edit. And it's not because you don't have your own creativity or anything. It's just to build the trust. Be a chameleon first, adopt to them, and then once you build that trust, you can, throw in my own little Tony flair, the Reid flair that you have. Um, so yeah, I think in the YouTube space especially, that needs to be a little bit more common, so people don't think this one way I edited for this one guy has to be the same way I edit for everybody. And it's like it's not like that at all.
I think that is so smart. I never realized that, of like, never thought of that. Like asking them, how do you like something edited, and like they'll tell you. Yeah, that's so smart, and it's so true. I can see that being true for sure. Um,
Have you ever experienced that? Just out of curiosity, since you work differently or in a different field than I have, like, is becoming a little more adaptable to every business that you work for? Is that also like a thing?
well, okay, so I usually, for the past 5 years since I moved to Los Angeles, I've been an assistant editor and I haven't done a lot of editing. Um, and so in the assistant editing world, it's really all about using standardized workflows, and it's less about, I mean, there is creativity, but it's like when shit hits the fan, so to speak, and like you need to problem solve like on the fly, and like the workflows kind of like go out the window because it's not working due to the workflow. So you kind of just have to like stick to the standard of like, what is the workflow? What's the way of getting footage in? What's the way of multi-grouping multiple cameras? That kind of thing. The editing that I have done for directors on short films, they've been really hands off. And so I'll just edit the way that I want. And I usually always try to like, I guess I am very like workflow minded. So I always try to figure out like, how can I get through my footage faster? How can I do a rough cut faster? So I'll tell this story. I come from the video game development world. So we have this idea of like making prototypes of games that are very rough and very ugly, and they don't work very well. And so I tried applying that to a first rough cut for a director of a short film. And I made the rough cut like within like a few days. Like it was really quick, but it was also really terrible and awful. But I knew like I just wanted to lay down every single shot just so I could see like what we had, but it didn't really follow the script closely and tightly. And the directors, like, they didn't understand like my approach. So that's actually, now that I say that, that's a really good example of where I had to adapt my process, my workflow to what a director expected.
No, that totally makes sense because that's literally how it has to be with me and everyone I work with. Because literally, no creator is the same. So some people like doing things a certain way. Some like it through Dropbox, some want Google Drive, some want reviews on Frame.io, but some want to review it on Discord and then watch it together. Like I have to, like I said, be a chameleon, just go with the flow because my job is the edit, but all the other little things, I'm just like, whatever works for you, I'll make it work. So it's even like this. I've never done a speaking thing through Discord, but we figured it out, and that's fine. Problem solving.
Yeah, absolutely. Black and white cameras and all, it's all good.
Right.
Yeah, and it's, as you said earlier, it's about building trust. You know, when you ask them questions in terms of what they want and how they want it done, that builds trust. And, you know, unfortunately, when editors are really young and inexperienced, they come into a situation, a work situation, thinking that they need to make sure that they know everything, or if they don't know how to say something, hide that. If they don't know how to do something, hide that and sort of like fake it until you make it. But a lot of times what people have told me is like they would rather young, inexperienced people to ask questions and to admit that they don't know. And that, even asking a question, I think can help build trust.
Oh yeah, because you're showing interest. You know, you could easily just say, I don't work with Dropbox. I only know Drive, Google Drive, and that's it. Like, you know, but for me, most of the time, I just have to approach everything as if I don't know the answer, the only worst case scenario is maybe I'm a little embarrassed, even though I don't really feel that. Because the biggest takeaway is you're gonna get smarter. So it doesn't matter if you don't know it now, you're gonna learn something new then. And again, that's just how you got to approach things is always look to get better. 1% better every day. That's all that really matters.
And post-production is so complicated and it's changing all the time. There's no way that you can know everything. So it's okay to not
No,
know it. Yeah.
I'll even tell you this, like it was only just, I think, beginning, and I'm talking about maybe January of this year. Like every time I do my A roll, I always nest it so I can color grade it, do whatever punch-ins I need to in the nest, and then leave it at that. But then, but I only found out in January that I can apply like the color grading if I just select the piece of footage in Premiere in my bins, and I can just apply it right there as well. Like I don't have to worry about the nesting. But like I just learned that in January, and I'm just like, I just learned a new skill. I don't care. It took me what 15 years to figure that out, but it's okay. You won't always know everything.
Yeah, it's totally okay because that's a really small feature. And every few months they'll have a new long list of features. And that one feature of applying a color grade or a LUT like in the bin, that's like line 27 in 52 lines of like
Right.
new features. It's hard, it's easy to miss these things.
Exactly.
So I just want to make sure, you know, if anybody in the audience has any questions, you know, please don't be shy. You know, I want this to be interactive. I want this to be more of a conversation. And if, you know, there's only a few of us, so if everybody wants to be given access to speak on stage, we can do that as well. You know, if you all have your cameras and your audio accessible, if you want to do that, we can. Just let me know in the chat.
Yeah, and then if not, we'll just answer the questions on here from the chat. Which, by the way, uh, Eric, yeah, good. He said good approach to the editing, and this was referring to my mindset on the editing podcast. Which, for one, thank you, but two, it's like, yeah, it's one of those things I had to learn over time. I definitely did not know this 5 years ago or 7 years ago when I started professionally. There's no way.
Okay, I'm gonna look through some old questions that I asked from the last one.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay,
Oh,
let's.
Eric did ask a question.
Yeah, let's do
Yeah,
that.
go for it. Go for it. You got this.
I will. Yeah, I'll just read it out loud for you. So Eric asked, how did you start or get started with? I would assume he means just video editing generally.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's just start with that.
Yeah, and then just in case, just to cover the grounds here, if you're asking like how I started, and then like maybe even software. Well, I started on like a really bad computer my brother got from Walmart that he wasn't using. It became the family PC, so I used that. And then I started with Windows Movie Maker for literally one day. Hated it. Just even when I was young, I was like, I don't like this for some reason. So I got Sony Vegas, and then Sony Vegas was my main editing software until I switched over to Premiere 5 years ago. And then now my workflow is just all in Adobe. I know basically every software besides Illustrator. I'm not fluent in that yet, but I'm learning. And then yeah, and then in general though, how like my actual career started. Um, it's such a long story. Which if you guys are interested, you guys can even watch literally a whole breakdown of my story on my YouTube channel. It's called how I went from zero to $120,000 a year, something like that. I changed it twice, but you'll find it. But to sum that up, like, oh, you saw it? Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, I highly recommend it. It's great. You're very thorough. You give your whole story, but there's a lot of really great nuggets of information to take away from it.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah. Um, well, yeah. So basically, though, my career started because I ended up dropping out of college after contemplating doing this. I just didn't know how to start. So I dropped out as like a it's do or die, so to speak, because I couldn't go back even if I wanted to at that point. But I was just consistently putting myself out there. I was reaching out to people like on LinkedIn, on Twitter. Took a lot of bad jobs, honestly, but my breakthrough was with my first YouTube channel called Planet Dolan. They're no longer posting anymore. I think you can still find them. I think they're like 3 or 5 million subscriber channel. It's an animation channel, but I started there, and then that's where I got my official like, okay, this is how this YouTuber works. And then luckily because of that, I just very little found other jobs. And then it wasn't until I met Thomas Frank, and once I met Tom, that's where everything skyrocketed for me. And it's only because the thing I preach a lot now is because of Tom, I got to meet more people, and just meeting people is like such a big gateway to find jobs for sure.
All right, here's a random question. Did you see the new video, since you were talking about Adobe, did you see the new video from NAB where Adobe talked about their AI tools that they're going to release sometime later this year?
Yeah, the one where I think in like Premiere, like you could make stuff hide or something. I seen a snippet. I haven't seen the official release yet, which is my fault because I really should be up to date by now. But I seen some of it. It looks cool. I just don't know in detail any release dates yet. Um, and it's funny enough, I'm in a group chat with Adobe people, and they asked me, and I haven't replied yet because I just haven't gotten to it yet. So, but I gotta check it out. But what did you think? Did you see it?
Yeah, I saw it, and it looks like someone in our chat. So I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name. I'll have to Sengiz. And so he says, I was at NAB and watched the video and talked to them. And they said, we'll release the beta version at the end of 2024. Okay, cool.
Interesting.
So what I saw was just the video, and they have a video where it's definitely a marketing video in that the user interface will probably end up being very different. But they have a video where they can mouse over different objects that are in the video, and one of them is like a wall of pipes and like a utility
That's what I
box in
saw.
between the pipes.
Yes.
And then there's also like a person that's in the shot and maybe like a third item that's in the shot. And it does something called segmentation. And so it can like perfectly select the person or the pipes on the wall. And then once you have that selected, you can choose to like remove it. And so it does some processing on the video footage to just completely remove the pipes from the wall. And a lot of people did notice that it wasn't a perfect removal. Like you could see some little graphical artifacts of where like something maybe was.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm sure they're working on that, and it'll get better. But one person that I saw that released a video about it, I think he's correct in that if someone, just like a random person on the internet sees that footage, they're not going to really notice the changes because they never knew what it looked like before. So all of these things like that people were pointing out, I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue. So, okay, the big thing though is like extending a shot. So they had a character on screen and they wanted to extend the shot by maybe like 3 seconds. Maybe it was more like just a second. So they had the clip and they dragged the clip out and then it used AI to generate extra footage of the character. And so again, what people notice is that it was a live action, a real person that was filmed, and then in the generated shot, that person ended up looking a little plastic and fake. But the tools themselves, like the concept of the tools is really powerful and really interesting, but it also brings up a lot of like really tricky situations of like, did that actor or actress agree to have their image sent to a generative AI system and have their performance extended? So it just brings up all of these like really interesting questions that I can't stop thinking about.
I mean, it's true because that's part of what a lot of the strikes that recently happened were about. So that's that's a fair thing to ask for sure. I guess to me, with a lot of this, is always coming down to like, I know people like myself who make their own content. I don't care, let's say that AI gets to extend me for X amount of time, whatever, right? But there's always going to be people that might want to use it like that. And then that begs the question of like, yeah, what are the rules around this now? Because an actress or actors paid X amount of money for X amount of time. So do they deserve an extra 2 seconds of pay? Like, I'm not trying to get nickel and diming here, but that's probably what will be asked. Because like, how do you work around that? And I don't know. Um, and then everything will be generated. Yeah, yeah. Just thinking out loud here.
Yeah. So we're reading in the chat. They said everything you can use in terms of AI generated footage will be generated using the information from Adobe stock. Huh. Okay. Cool. That is really cool that Adobe is trying to develop this AI tech responsibly, and they're not scraping for data from YouTube or from Getty Images. Like they have their own stock library that they're using to train these their AI model, which I think they're calling Firefly. Excuse me. And and even the people that have their own content on Adobe stock apparently are getting some sort of compensation for their materials being used and trained. So that's really awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. From my connections at Adobe, they're very much aware of stuff like that. So now, of course, that's them, and you never know what behind the scenes could be happening. But I do trust the people that I talk to. Where if they say no, we're not doing that, I have to take them at face value because they haven't given me a reason not to think otherwise yet. But it's so good to at least have these conversations. They matter for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, do you want to talk about the relationship that you have with Thomas? I remember asking you about this in the first conversation that we had in terms of like how you collaborate on videos and whether he just tells you like this is the script and this is how I want it done. Like, do you ever get the opportunity to come up with new scripts? Like, what's your collaboration like?
Yeah, working with Tom is the like best experience I've had, but it's mainly because with Tom, he has his own quirks like anyone else, but Tom does accept and invite any feedback, rallying information, or going back and forth on a topic. The only thing with Tom is like it's very hard for him to not be involved in everything. He may think he doesn't want to be because he has stated that, and we try to help him with that, like almost to a fault where like we even hinder ourselves a little to try to help him with everything. Um, but Tom does accept me being creative and whatnot. The only issue now, I would say, if I even want to call it an issue, is just because since we're now Notion centric, it's very much now just make sure whatever we're showing is accurate to what we're stating that our templates could do, or our new app called Flylighter is going to come out. like make sure that we show the right stuff on screen. So it's less creative now than before, which does bum me out a little bit. But at the same time, I still care so much because everything is like we all get to just talk as friends, and I think that's the biggest thing that I loved when I first met him was I respect them as a boss, but I can also just talk to him as a friend. I can say, "Hey, like I get your point here, but do we need it? Can I delete it? Or I personally don't like it." Like he's okay with that. The only thing is, of course, at the end of the day, it's what he wants, and I respect that. It's just I'm glad I can speak up because there's definitely been people I cannot do that with.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but my general sense is on the YouTube platform, creators like channel creators are looking for that creative partner. They're looking for an editor who who can bring ideas and who can challenge them respectfully to just make sure that everybody's doing the best thing for the growth of the channel. Would you find that that's generally true that on the YouTube platform, editors are sought out? You know, the editors that are in demand are the ones that can bring fresh ideas and even push and challenge the channel creators a little bit.
I'd say so. More often than not, that is why I get contacted. And even in my friend group, a lot of us are always reached out because people like what we do. But I think people forget that we're not button pushers and we're not yes men. Like we work with the people we work with because that's where the invitation of collaboration exists. Like there's been plenty of people who just want me to work for their what do you call it? Like an editing what is it what's a service thing called? Oh, like a production house, but I don't want to say production house. It's something else. There's a different term for it now. But the point, oh, there it is. Yes, like I've been invited to work for some agencies and what have you, but I'm just like, no, man. Like I'm a creator at heart. I can't just be say yes to everything because I have an opinion about everything. Not that my opinion's good, but I want to talk about stuff, you know. But the biggest problem, 100%, is even if you find those people, even if the creator finds that kind of an editor, there's still the issue that they think because they got their channel to 500,000, 200,000, a million subscribers, it is their secret stuff that make that channel grow. Therefore, I don't have that secret stuff. I have to do what they say. When it's like, I can learn what you're doing. It's a learnable skill. The only difference is we have to learn to collaborate so I can get into their mind more. It's kind of like I know Gasper's in this, and I remember when I had a chat with him and some other people, somebody said something where like a director has like an editor for different scenes, and that's because that editor is really good at that scene. Like they're good at action, they're good at romance. And that's what I think the approach should be whenever we're working with people is like your video's about what is the end goal, because that editing process needs to be different if it's a Q&A, if it's an entertaining let's open a Pokemon pack video. But it's hard, I think, for creators who are by themselves for so long to know how to work with people, and that's not their fault. It's just the nature of the business sometimes.
Yeah, they just don't have that experience. And it is really hard to work with different people, like personalities and the way that we communicate. And we're mostly working remotely as well. Um, I think most YouTube content creators and editors are probably in separate locations. Although you live just a few minutes away from Thomas Frank and like you have your own studio, right? So you are able to work in person. Is that right?
Yeah, that has actually changed as of recently. Like we at the end of this month, we'll finally all be remote for the time being. But for the past 5 years, yeah, we shared a studio space, and like every day I would see him, and we get to just have fun, make stuff. It's been great.
I saw a video where Thomas Frank a few months ago was talking about moving. Is that is that why you're not going to be working on site together?
Yeah, the company was considering. When I say company, I mean me, Tom, and then our other team members, because there's more than just three of us. Yeah, we were all considering going to Minneapolis, just work life and the conditions over there as opposed to Denver, money and what have you. But yeah, because of that, our current studio lease ends this month. So Just for the time being until we kind of figure out how we're going to do everything. That's why we're going to be remote. So chances are I'll either be here in Denver for a little bit longer, maybe Minneapolis, or if we end up sticking remotely, I might entertain going because I'm originally from Illinois, close to Chicago. So I'm thinking about that. And then the very last one on the list would be California. As much as I want to go for work reasons, I don't know if I'm mentally there yet, honestly.
Yeah, it is. It is quite a move for sure. And right now, as I'm sure you know, the industry here is having a very tough time. So, even though
Yep.
I know it's your dream to work. Actually, we can talk about that right now if you want. Um, it's your dream to work in animation. If correct me if I'm wrong. And so, if that is the case, definitely moving to Los Angeles is where you want to be. But yeah, I can't recommend it right now. It's really tough.
Yeah. No, that is my goal. It's funny though because my mind has changed so much because so much has happened to me this year. Where yes, if when I decide that maybe an editor is not my thing anymore, and let's say I move to some other role, my goal is to at least work on one animation film. And that's just because animation's the reason I started. Like I got Mickey Mouse tattooed right here. I have posters of my favorite cartoons right here. Like I love cartoons and animation. But I also know that no matter what, though, as long as I'm doing this profession and career, that really is the dream. It's not the end goal isn't animation. It's just I really hope it happens. You know? Yeah. So yeah, that's why also I had to consider California because like I have friends at Disney, DreamWorks now, and it's just like if I really want to nurture those relationships, I know the best way to do that is to be over there. So I have to think about that.
Let's try to get some like actionable advice for people that might be watching. Um, what would
Oh, love
you,
that. Yeah.
yeah, what's your advice for people that want to broaden their network and meet people?
Mm. Yeah, it's definitely just I wish I could remember his name, and I say this every time I'm gonna reference this man. There's a cinematographer I saw in an interview once because he's also an introvert, and believe it or not, I really am. And he said that when he deals with his anxiety of like, oh, there's a group of editors, but I'm too shy to talk to them, he reminds himself that he wants to be successful more than he wants to be shy. And I think a lot of us need to understand that networking is a part of our career, and doesn't have to be in like let me talk to Reid to get something from him. It's let me see if Reid and I can actually be friends. And literally just one conversation at a time, word of mouth goes around. And I would not be here had I not just had the courage to start reaching out to people on Twitter. That's how I started it like very heavily 3 years ago. Just reaching out to people, messaging that I'm an editor. I work with Thomas Frank. Here's what I do. If they're interested, let's chat. And I've made just so many more friends that way. And I really recommend anyone who wants to build their network, don't be afraid to reach out. Just do it. You never know what can happen. All I would advise you to do is please be professional. Um, don't approach them for favors. You just can't ask someone that when you just meet them, but approach them in a way of like, I admire what you do. We're both editors. I would just love to chat and learn about you. And I think that's the best way to start.
Awesome, awesome. Definitely agree. Like I always like it when people ask, to learn more about my background and my history. The other day, here's an example of what not to do. The other day, I got an email from someone that I'd worked with, maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, and I'd only worked with him for a week. It was a very short project, and he just basically sent me an email saying, "Hey, we worked together a few years ago. I'm available for work, so if you have anything, please let me know." And my resume is attached. I'm not kidding. That's all the email was, and
Mm,
that did not impress me, and I don't think I even
yeah.
replied to that. Um, and that just didn't make me feel good. Didn't make me feel like he wanted to have an actual like friendship or other kind of like professional relationship
Right.
with me.
No, for sure. I am more interested in making real friendships than friendships that I'm watering just for favors. Like, don't poison, don't poison today and your future to gain something short term. When in the long term, you never know when you're gonna need that favor when you really need it. Like if I was really down bad, I'm happy to say I have a network I can reach out to, but no one owes me anything. Like I just want them as friends, and I hope I continue this relationship. So if they ever need it, like if you ever needed work, it's like, yeah, let me ask around. Like I know I don't owe you anything, but because I genuinely like you, I can do you that favor because we're friends. Like it's just I don't know how else to explain it. To me, it's just make friends. That really just matters. Oh, Eric also said, I think animation isn't as bad as other silos at the moment. Sadly, I wouldn't know. I actually don't know as many animation editors. I do have a friend named Andy Young who works at Warner Brothers, and I know Warner Brothers having their own thing. But I don't know too much on what else has been going on.
Yeah,
Um,
Andy's great. I think both Eric and I know him. Yep. Eric just
oh
said
yeah,
Andy's great.
yeah.
Okay, so
He.
some, oh, go ahead, Tony, go
Oh
ahead.
no, no. Oh no, I was just gonna say like he's just one of my favorite people at this point. That guy's such a great. He's just a good guy. I don't know how else to say it. It's just nice.
Um, okay, cool. So Samir just said, "Hi Tony, thanks for your time and insight. What was the biggest challenge you faced in your career, and how did it help you or change your perspective?" Okay, great. So biggest challenge that you faced. Ooh, that's a tough one. Thank you, Samir.
There's quite a few. Uh, One of them, I don't want it to sound too sad. It's just I'm open to talk about this one, but then so I have two that comes to mind right away. So the one that I consider to be a little, I guess, sad, but I'm not trying to make anyone sad. It definitely can be the idea because of my industry, because 99% of the work can be remote, and most people work this way. Um, I deal a lot with like loneliness because I am just constantly in my apartment or constantly at the studio by myself working on stuff. And it's great to message people on Slack, but uh, just as a person, I like the occasional conversation. Even though I'm introverted, I like seeing people sometimes, obviously. So for me, my biggest problem is one, I'm trying to get better at dealing with that because it does make me kind of depressed sometimes. So even events like this, I'm glad Reid reached out. I get to talk to, great friends. So that's one thing. And the way I'm overcoming it is by making sure I make time for the friends that I have. I can't just be working all the time. And then the second thing that definitely changed my perspective, it really is just how quickly I realized how much I have to adapt to every single job I have. You cannot just assume everything is one way because someone can teach you one thing. This creator is a different way. Reid would like things a different way. Tom wants this a different way. And I have to learn to adapt to every single person. Uh, yeah, it's never as easy as I originally thought it might have been years ago.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing about just how isolating this job can be. That's absolutely 100% true.
Yeah.
Haven't been. It's been a while since I've worked in the office, so I can totally relate to that isolation. And it's so important to, I don't know, just go outside on walks. And like I went out for a walk
Right.
this morning and just passed by a random person who said hi. And just that simple thing was like, oh, that felt good. That was nice. They were a nice person, you know?
And yeah. It's just, again, we all work from home too most of the time. So, like, when we're done with work, we just probably shower and then we're like, well, we're already home. So now, do I want to watch a movie, play a game? Like, you barely leave sometimes. Uh, Again, but that's my issue. I know everyone probably has different work life balances, but that's my problem for sure.
I think a lot of people can relate. So yeah, thank you for sharing. Um,
You're welcome, Samir. I saw you said thank you. So, yeah, no problem. How about you, though? I actually would love to know, Reid. Yeah, what are some of the biggest things you had to go through?
um, well, okay.
You don't mind me asking.
Well, I love the question. I think it's important to talk about. It's just a matter of like, again, I think kind of how you were trying to phrase it, and not get too dark or too negative about it. Um,
Right.
for me, okay, burnout. You mentioned that word
Oh,
previously, and I was going to ask you about it.
yeah.
For me, burnout has been extremely challenging to overcome. With the kind of work that I have done primarily since moving to Los Angeles as an assistant editor, I can be the single assistant editor supporting a team of editors that's maybe between 4 to 8 editors, and then also like 4 to 8 producers. So during the day when I'm doing that, I have a team of like, maybe it's more like 5 people to 12 or more people who are coming to me with requests. Can you download this music? Can you download this video clip or sound or just any kind of media? Can you, transcode this footage and group it? Can you export this cut? Can you update these documents that we're tracking to make sure that we're like on track for the deadline? There's just so many things to do. And like through a 10-hour day, it's exhausting. And I just get so tired and burned out like at the end of working on a show for like, 3 months or so. That is just like,
Yeah.
it's so difficult to deal with because I don't want to think at the end of the day. I don't want to develop my skills. I don't want to grow. I don't want to talk to people
Yeah.
and network. And then when that job ends, like, I'm just dead and done.
No,
So,
no.
yeah, so
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
been super difficult to deal with.
One thing I'll add to that, and then we can move on to probably some of the final ones. I know I don't want to overdo it just in case, but um, no, because you saying that reminded me of something too, actually, which probably goes back to what Samir was asking. But yeah, that's actually the other thing too. Is like I have two channels I'm working on. My main one, my hobby one with my brother, and then I have Thomas Frank. Thomas Frank explains two more, and then I have people messaging me occasionally for work. If I need side money to pay off more of my darn student loan debt, I sometimes have to do it, and then I realize I'm working like 12 plus hours a day. Like I don't make time for anything else. So that burnout that you were saying, oh my god, I don't know how that didn't come to my mind, but that's so true. That's that's a problem I have actually, for sure. Yeah.
I did not realize. So you've got 2 channels that you're editing with Thomas Frank. You've got 2 of your own channels, and then you have people coming to you with requests. Dude, that is intense. That's really intense. Wow.
Yeah, it's a blessing because I started from nothing, and I think that's part of my problem is I don't ever want to feel like I'm taking anything for granted. But I also have to acknowledge I am one man. I can't do all of this as much as I want to, you know? It's just rough.
Man. All right, cool. What do you like to do? Like, have you found anything that helps you with managing that stress and that burnout? Whether it's, you know, socializing with friends, like scheduling on a calendar, socializing with friends, or going for walks. Like, do you have any kind of routine or something that you like to do to help with that?
I do. My days are definitely routined already where like it's blurred out, but like I have my dog, she's on the couch. My girlfriend's not home right now, but like I have a girlfriend. So like yeah, I make sure I spend time with them. Uh, Me, my family, and my girlfriend were all gamers, so we play almost every day Fortnite or Overwatch. Like we make sure we all play together because that's our escape. But the all I'm saying for me, the issue is like, oh, maybe I can just give up an extra 30 minutes of game time so I can finish this one project, and then that's where that problem occurs. But no, I love to play video games. I'm also like a collector of some things. Like I love to collect some Power Ranger figures. I'm recently collecting Lorcana. I'm collecting Pokemon cards with my brother, which is what our second channel is about. And then the worst part is editing is still a hobby for me. So when I have nothing to do, I want to edit, but I can't because then that just feels like work and I'm burned out. So I don't know how to balance that.
Yeah, I've done that too as well. That's where it's really hard to for me to develop my skills as an editor, because if I do it all day for work, and then at the end of the day, I want to learn about like VFX editing or something, I'm just tired and don't want to do that. But so much of the advice that I've gotten is like, you just need to suck it up and put in those extra hours after work
Mm.
to develop those skills to get to the next level. And it's like, it's so hard.
It is. That's why like this Notion certification I have to take. It's like if I can't do it during my Thomas Frank time because it's my job, then that means I have to dip in a little to my after Tom time, but that dips into my channel time, which dips into family time. So work-life balance is just a mess right now for me. So yeah, it's rough. And oh, I see in the chat, Gasper says it's his biggest problem too. Yeah, I'm glad all of us relate because seriously, it makes me feel less alone. Because your head will make you think like, oh, it's just you. Suck it up. It's okay. It's like, no, no, this is common.
And Gasper, do you mind if I sort of mention your side project that you're working on? Because I know that's a huge project. Okay,
Mm.
so and maybe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you're working on a new type of editing software. And you're still, as far as I know, sort of, I'm sure there's a lot of work that's been done on it. So yeah, I'm not going to say anything to put any wrong information out there. But the reason I want to mention it is like, you're developing a brand new piece of software for editors. That's a huge project. And so I think, by the way, it's called Novella. I will say that. And so as editors, I think I'm seeing a pattern here. We all like to have our side businesses and side channels and side gigs. Like while I was assistant editing, I started Jump Cut Conference as a live conference event. That was a side business that I started. And so, yeah, there seems to be a pattern where we just try to like just do too much.
I think we're all just so driven, which is good because I definitely want people to be driven and think a little beyond just working for others. Like, oh, do you make your own stuff? Just because you're just increasing your grounds for luck to happen in a way. Like someone can see a side project that leads to a call, which could lead to a job. But again, the problem is how do you do that when you're a full-time editor and then it's like, great, now I have another 4 hours of this side project that is still editing. And there goes 12 hours of your day. Like, ugh, I don't know. It's crazy. So yeah, Gasper, I don't know how you deal with that, man, because I know for sure it's probably a lot for you too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like you just reminded me something that else that I'm struggling with is focus. I have so many different interests, like the side business. I was talking with you earlier about trying to learn like SQL for database and data science. I've dabbled a little bit in Python programming. I love learning about artificial intelligence. Like, I have too many interests. And so, some of the YouTube content that I watch is like how to be successful in business and how to be more productive. And the theme that keeps coming up is I need to be more focused and say no to more things. And that is so difficult because I'm just so interested in everything.
Yep. 100% on that as well. Like that's why I'm also part of a couple Slack groups and like one Discord group for animation editors. But the problem I have too is like I'm joining a lot of things because I'm genuinely interested in talking about them. But again, I'm already so busy every day where sometimes I don't even post for like a month, and that's just like, am I even doing any good joining these when in reality maybe I should say no as much as I want to not give anyone false hope. Like it does guilt me when I can't be a part of something, even though I expressed interest. Uh, but it's just how my brain is sometimes.
And the good thing is that you do learn a lot. So it's not wasted time, that's for sure. Um, so
Yeah.
I remembered what I wanted to ask you earlier is when you're
Wonderful.
editing for Thomas Frank, and Does the thought ever occur to you that you're editing for almost 3 million people? Do you ever feel that sense of pressure? And if so, like, how do you deal with it?
Yeah, when I first started, I was definitely worried because it's funny because like I did editing for an animation channel that was like also equally as big, but for some reason I didn't feel the pressure there because I was more making sure like I did some sound effects, made sure the animators gave me the stuff on time. Like I don't know how else to put it, but my brain was like, well, if something goes wrong, it's mainly that I didn't get an asset or the animator messed up, not me. Like, but again, I was new, you know. But now that I really understand the business, and now since I've been editing with Tom, I have to remember that I'm making someone's favorite thing. So like people love Tom for his advice. Don't screw that up. Like that's what goes to my head every time. So to me, don't screw that up is make sure you present the information correctly. Is this the best graph I can make to get my point across? So for me, it's more just I don't want to fail someone's favorite thing. Not about the 3 million people. It's just that one person that might really rely on this information. And sometimes I get worried that I'm not doing a good job and I just got to trust my instincts and then trust the feedback I get with Tom. And that's part of that collaboration that I really look forward to. So,
Wow, that's awesome. I never realized that. Like you do experience a lot of pressure. Wow. Um, so I want to catch up on the chat. So Gasper said, the reason why I am doing this is because in my mind, we are seeing the beginning of the end of Hollywood and Hollywood production. It's important that as content creators become the new auteurs and filmmakers of the tomorrow, they should also experience the joy and collaboration it takes a team. Yeah, absolutely. This also applies to business. The one-man band ventures don't go far and leads to burnout. I can't do Novella on my own. Yeah, absolutely.
uh-huh. He nailed it with that, especially on the fact that the one man band ventures don't go far. That's why there's a saying. If you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go with a team. And that is exactly why I love collaboration. And as much as, sure, I can tout that, yeah, I'm the main guy for the Thomas Frank channels, I'm killing it. It's like, no, I need them too. I cannot do it on my own, like at all.
Yeah, yeah. We are just about, yeah, we're out of time. Is there anything else that you would like to say before we end, Tony?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for everyone that's been here. Sincerely, this has been fun. It is 10 p.m. for me, but I literally am happy to be a part of this because you guys are just great. And I also would like to say, like, yeah, if you guys are interested, go to my channel. Uh, I am trying my best, but I've already admitted that I'm so behind and like burned out a lot of times. But yeah, I'm making interviews with other editors, both in the YouTube space, but then also in like Hollywood and such. At some point, I definitely want to talk to you, Reid, on there for sure. Same with like Gasper and then any other friends that we can make. But the point of those interviews is to have exactly what we just had with Reid here, which is I like open, honest conversations rather than just telling someone how they can make $100,000 in a year if they just develop this one skill. It's like it's so much more than that, and I'd rather be honest about that. But other than that, Reid, seriously, just thank you for having me. This has been fun.
Yeah, this is awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and I want to thank everybody in the chat for participating and asking your questions. That was really fun, and definitely tell people that you had a good time. And yeah, good night, everyone, and thank you so much. We'll do this again.
Yeah, for sure. Good night, everyone. Thanks again.